Some women don't chase, and yet they're never forgotten. There's something about her presence that lingers in a man's mind long after she's left the room. She doesn't plead for attention, doesn't perform for validation, doesn't diminish herself to fit into someone else's narrow definition of desirable. Instead, she moves through the world with a quiet magnetism that draws people toward her like moths to a flame they can't quite understand. Carl Jung once wrote that the most powerful force in human psychology is not what we show the world, but what we've learned to integrate within ourselves. The woman who has done this inner work, who has faced her shadow, embraced her contradictions, and learned to love herself without apology, becomes something extraordinary. She becomes irresistible, not because she tries to be, but because she has stopped trying to be anything other than authentically herself. This is not about manipulation or strategy. This is about the profound psychological transformation that occurs when a woman stops abandoning herself for the comfort of others. Jung understood that true attraction operates on levels far deeper than the conscious mind. It's rooted in archetypal patterns that have shaped human behavior for millennia. The mature woman who embodies these 6 habits has learned something that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. She has learned to be alone with herself and discovered that she is fascinating company. She has walked through the dark forest of her own psyche and emerged not broken, but whole. Not perfect, but integrated. When a woman reaches this level of self-possession, something shifts in the collective unconscious around her. Men sense it before they understand it. They feel drawn to her presence because she represents something their unconscious mind recognizes as rare and precious. A person who has done the work of individuation, who has learned to hold space for both her light and her darkness without apology. This is the woman who doesn't need to announce her worth because it radiates from every gesture, every boundary, every moment of comfortable silence. She has learned that the most magnetic thing about her is not what she gives to others, but what she has given to herself. The first habit of the irresistible woman is her relationship with emotional detachment. Not the cold, defensive detachment of someone who has shut down, but the warm, conscious detachment of someone who has learned to love without losing herself. Jung spoke of the necessity of holding opposites in tension. And nowhere is this more crucial than in how she navigates relationships. She has learned the paradox that the more tightly you grasp something, the more it slips through your fingers. So she loves with an open hand. Picture her in conversation with someone she's attracted to. While others might lean in desperately, searching his face for signs of reciprocation, she leans back into herself. She listens not just to his words, but to the space between them. She notices what he doesn't say as much as what he does. This isn't calculation, it's presence. She's fully there, but she's not trying to control the outcome. This detachment comes from years of understanding her own attachment patterns. She has traced the roots of her need for external validation back to their source, usually in childhood wounds that taught her she had to perform to be worthy of love. Through shadow work, Jung's process of integrating the parts of ourselves we've rejected, she has reclaimed the parts of herself she gave away to earn approval. The irresistible woman has learned that her peace cannot depend on another person's behavior. This knowing radiates from her like a fragrance. Men sense it unconsciously. Here is a woman who will not make her happiness his responsibility. Here is someone who has learned to fill her own cup first. When she speaks, there's no urgency in her voice, no hidden agenda beneath her words. She says what she means and means what she says because she has learned that authenticity is the only sustainable foundation for any relationship worth having. Her detachment is not indifference, it's freedom. And freedom, Jung knew, is the most attractive quality a human being can possess. But this detachment was not always her natural state. There was a time when she clung to relationships like a drowning person clings to driftwood. There was a time when she confused love with desperation, when she believed that caring meant suffering, when she thought that if she just tried hard enough, she could make someone love her the way she needed to be loved. The transformation came through pain, the kind of deep, soul-level pain that forces you to choose between continuing to abandon yourself or finally coming home to who you really are. She chose herself, and in that choice, everything changed. The second habit is her relationship with boundaries, not as walls to keep others out, but as sacred containers that protect what she values most. The mature woman has learned that a boundary is not a punishment she inflicts on others. It's a gift she gives to herself and ultimately to everyone around her. She understands what the Stoic philosophers knew, that she cannot control other people's behavior, but she has absolute sovereignty over her own responses. Watch her when someone crosses a line. There's no drama, no emotional explosion, no lengthy explanation of why their behavior is unacceptable. Instead, there's a quiet shift in her energy, a subtle stepping back that communicates more clearly than words ever could. She doesn't try to change them or educate them or convince them to see her perspective. She simply removes herself from the equation. This habit was born from understanding Jung's concept of projection. She has learned that when people consistently disrespect her boundaries, they are often projecting their own relationship with self-respect onto her. Rather than taking this personally, she recognizes it as information about their inner world, not a reflection of her worth. Her boundaries are not rigid walls, but permeable membranes that allow love and respect to flow freely while filtering out toxicity and manipulation. She has learned to distinguish between someone who occasionally makes a mistake and someone who consistently shows her through their actions that they do not value what she values. The irresistible woman knows that saying no to what doesn't serve her creates space for what does. Every boundary she maintains is an act of self-love that reverberates through all her relationships. She has learned that people will treat her exactly as well as she insists on being treated. Not through demands or ultimatums, but through the quiet consistency of her actions. Her boundaries are particularly powerful because they come from a place of self-worth rather than fear. She's not protecting herself from getting hurt. She's protecting the life she has worked so hard to build. This distinction changes everything about how others perceive and respond to her limits. The third habit is her mastery of emotional regulation, the art of feeling everything while being controlled by nothing. Jung understood that emotional maturity is not about suppressing feelings, but about developing a conscious relationship with them. The irresistible woman has learned to be the observer of her emotions rather than their victim. She feels anger, but she is not consumed by it. She experiences sadness, but she does not drown in it. She knows joy, but she does not become dependent on external circumstances to maintain it. This mastery was developed through what trauma psychology calls emotional tolerance, the ability to sit with difficult feelings without immediately acting to escape them. She has learned that emotions are messengers, not masters. They provide valuable information about her inner landscape and her relationships, but they do not dictate her behavior. Picture her receiving disappointing news. While others might react immediately, calling friends to process, posting on social media, or confronting the person involved, she creates space between the feeling and the response. She might go for a walk, write in her journal, or simply sit with the emotion until she can see it clearly. This pause is where her power lives. Her emotional regulation extends to how she handles conflict. She has learned that reactive responses rarely lead to the outcome she desires. Instead, she responds from a place of centered awareness. She can acknowledge someone's behavior without being triggered by it. She can express her needs without making demands. She can walk away from situations that don't serve her without burning bridges or creating unnecessary drama. This emotional mastery makes her incredibly attractive because it creates a sense of safety around her. People unconsciously relax in her presence because they sense that she will not burden them with her unprocessed emotions or expect them to manage her inner world. She takes responsibility for her own emotional landscape, which frees others to show up authentically in relationship with her. The Stoics called this emotional equilibrium, the ability to maintain inner stability regardless of external circumstances. The mature woman has cultivated this quality not through suppression, but through integration, not through denial, but through acceptance. There was a time when her emotions controlled her like puppet strings in unseen hands, when someone's tone of voice could ruin her day, when a delayed text message could send her spiraling into anxiety, when she confused intensity with intimacy and drama with passion. The shift came through recognizing that her emotional reactivity was often a defense mechanism against feeling truly vulnerable. The deeper work was learning to be present with her feelings without immediately needing to do something about them. The fourth habit is her cultivation of mysterious depth, the quality of being knowable but never completely known. Jung wrote about the importance of maintaining individual mystery even within intimate relationships. The irresistible woman has learned that revealing everything immediately is like reading the last page of a novel first. It eliminates the delicious tension of discovery that keeps people engaged. This is not about being manipulative or withholding. It's about understanding that depth is revealed slowly, like morning mist lifting from a lake. She shares generously but selectively. She's an open book, but one with chapters that must be earned through consistency and genuine interest. Her mystery comes from having a rich inner life that doesn't revolve around other people. She has hobbies, interests, dreams, and pursuits that exist independently of any relationship. When someone asks what she's thinking, sometimes the answer is genuinely complex. She might be pondering a book she's reading, working through a creative problem, or processing an insight from her morning meditation. She has learned the difference between transparency and emotional dumping. She can be vulnerable without being overwhelming, intimate without being intrusive. She understands that true intimacy is built slowly, like a fire that starts with kindling and gradually builds to a steady flame. The mature woman maintains friendships and interests that predate any romantic relationship. She has a life that someone gets to join, not a void that someone gets to fill. This independence creates intrigue because people sense that choosing to spend time with them is exactly that. A choice, not a desperate need. Her conversations reveal intelligence and curiosity about the world beyond her immediate experience. She asks thoughtful questions not because she's trying to show interest, but because she genuinely finds people fascinating when they're being authentic. This quality of attention is rare in a world where most people are waiting for their turn to speak rather than truly listening. The mystery she cultivates is not about playing games. It's about honoring the fact that knowing someone deeply is a privilege that should be earned through consistent, respectful behavior over time. The fifth habit is her practice of selective investment, the wisdom of knowing where to place her energy and attention. The mature woman has learned that not every person who shows interest in her deserves her investment. She has developed what Jung might call discernment of the soul, the ability to recognize authentic interest versus mere availability, genuine compatibility versus surface attraction, long-term potential versus momentary excitement. She no longer operates from scarcity, believing that any attention is better than no attention. Through her individuation process, she has developed a clear sense of her own value and what she brings to relationships. This clarity allows her to be genuinely selective without being impossibly picky. Watch her navigate social situations. She's warm and engaging with everyone, but she reserves her deeper energy for those who demonstrate through their actions, not just their words, that they value what she offers. She has learned to recognize the difference between someone who is genuinely interested in knowing her and someone who is simply interested in having her attention. This selective investment extends to how she spends her time and emotional energy. She has learned that overgiving in the early stages of any relationship, romantic or otherwise, often attracts people who are comfortable taking more than they give. Instead, she matches energy levels and investment gradually, allowing natural reciprocity to develop. Her selectivity is not about being difficult or playing hard to get. It's about recognizing that her time, attention, and emotional energy are finite resources that deserve to be invested wisely. She has learned that saying yes to everyone means saying no to the people who truly deserve her best. The irresistible woman has also learned to recognize red flags early and respond to them decisively. She doesn't try to fix people or convince them to want what she offers. She simply notes the information their behavior provides and acts accordingly. There was a time when she gave her energy freely to anyone who showed the slightest interest, when she confused being needed with being valued, when she thought that if she just gave enough, loved enough, did enough, she could earn the kind of love she craved. The awakening came through recognizing that the people who truly valued her had never required her to earn their respect or affection. They had seen her worth immediately and responded accordingly. The sixth and final habit is her embodiment of integrated wholeness, the rare quality of someone who has learned to love all aspects of herself, including the parts she once tried to hide. Jung's concept of individuation is about integrating all aspects of the psyche, the light and the shadow, the masculine and the feminine, the vulnerable and the strong. The mature woman has done this work. She is comfortable with her complexity, at peace with her contradictions, and unashamed of her humanity. She no longer tries to be perfect because she has learned that perfection is not only impossible but deeply unattractive. Instead, she strives for authenticity, the far more magnetic quality of being genuinely herself in all circumstances. This integration shows up in how she moves through the world. She can be strong without being harsh, soft without being weak, confident without being arrogant. She has learned to hold space for opposing qualities within herself, which allows others to feel safe showing up authentically in her presence. Her wholeness is perhaps most evident in how she talks about her past. She doesn't hide her struggles or pretend her journey has been easy, but she also doesn't define herself by her wounds. She has learned to tell her story from a place of integration rather than victimhood, understanding that her challenges have contributed to her depth and wisdom. The integrated woman has made peace with her shadow, those aspects of herself that she once rejected or tried to hide. She might acknowledge that she can be jealous sometimes, that she has moments of selfishness, that she doesn't always live up to her own ideals. But she speaks of these qualities without shame because she understands that they are part of her human completeness. This wholeness makes her irresistible because people unconsciously recognize that they can be complete around her too. They don't have to perform or pretend or hide parts of themselves to earn her acceptance. In her integrated presence, others feel permission to be fully human. The woman who embodies these 6 habits moves through life with a quiet confidence that changes every room she enters. She doesn't need to announce her worth because it precedes her like a gentle fragrance. She doesn't chase because she has learned that anything worth having will recognize her value and respond accordingly. She has discovered the profound truth that Jung spent his lifetime exploring, that the goal of human life is not to be perfect, but to be whole, not to be desired by everyone, but to be authentically herself in every moment. The men who are meant for her will recognize her immediately, not because she fits some idealized image of femininity, but because she has learned to inhabit her own skin with complete comfort. Those who don't recognize her value were never meant to be part of her story. She understands now that the most attractive thing about her is not what she offers to others, but what she has learned to offer to herself: unconditional love, unwavering respect, and the fierce protection of her own peace. The woman who walks away in silence isn't weak. She simply sees more. She sees that her worth was never up for debate, that her value was never conditional, and that the love she seeks already lives within her, waiting to be shared with someone wise enough to recognize the gift she represents. She is irresistible not because she tries to be, but because she has finally learned to be herself. And that, Jung knew, is the rarest and most magnetic quality of all.